what we've done. We started 2 lives ago on the Aventine Hill at Santa Sabina. A Dominican priest friend let me into the garden to give us the beautiful view of St. Peter's Dome, which is where we are heading to now. Then from the Aventine Hill, we passed by the skull of St. Valentine to say a prayer on his feast day. And what else did we do? Then we went to San Giorgio of Alabro, where I had to start a new second live. And then from there, we went to the Chaelian Hill to Saints John and Paul. And now we just passed the Colosseum. So right now we're just standing. It just took me the last couple minutes to figure out YouTube. I'll have to play with it a bit more just so that we have better experience for you here. So we're going to be coming here every Saturday to Rome to walk the path of the Roman station churches. Hello, welcome. I hope you can go back and watch the last 2 lives. I love getting you guys in the comments when I am going live. It helps me sort of stay a bit more active. I've been very excited for this because I've been thinking, how are we going to explore the station churches this Lent? You know, I work with EWTN full time on the social media team. I present you things on Instagram and other social media, also in the shorts here on YouTube for Crux Stationalis. And so now we're going to be going live for a couple hours every Saturday to explore the most ancient churches of Rome. They're waving at you from people see me saying when someone hears you say you're going live. Anyways, I'm happy to have yes, we've been to Santa Maria in Cosmedin. So we went to Santa Sabina. We got a sneak peek private view of the dome of St. Peter's from there, thanks to an American Dominican priest friend of mine, Father Patrick Mary, who is also a social media sort of guru. And then we walked through the Basilica of Santa Sabina, so that's in the first live, and also went to visit St. Valentine's skull, in Santa Maria in Cosmedin, which is a Melkite church. And we went there to visit him on his feast day. Then the live cut out. But then I figured out we can go horizontal. There was a secret setting that was set in the background of YouTube that I've been able to change. So then we went to San Giorgio of Alabro. We walked through Circo Massimo after passing Santa Anastasia and went up the Chaelian Hill, passing St. Gregory the Great, and went to Saints John and Paul, Santi Giovanni e Paolo al Celio, which is the Passionist headquarters. And then from there, we have managed to get here. And then the live just went away. So now we're here on the 3rd live. Hopefully we'll be able to I'm getting all these notifications. Let's turn around. This is where we're going. We're going down the Via dei Fiori Imperiali. These are the new metro stops for the Colosseum. I have yet to get onto the metro from here, but gosh, it's a beautiful day now. We thought it was going to be rainy, and it's not. It's quite beautiful. So I've been sick. I've been busy with, the Pope's schedule. So with EWTN Vatican, my work there and the social media team, which, I was able to become part of that team because of all of you who have watched Crux Stationalis and have enjoyed the work here. I trained myself for social media via Crux Stationalis and the Roman station churches. But that work keeps me quite busy, especially through the Jubilee year. We've had all of these event after event, and then we had the death of Pope Francis, the election of Pope Leo. I mean, historic. So I'm happy to have taken part in that historic way and presenting it on social media through EWTN Vatican and other EWTN entities. But I'm really happy to be back here. This morning I was all in a giddy, thinking about being behind the phone here. We're looking at Saints Cosmas and Damian, which is a Roman station church that we'll explore. So if you're new to these, to this tripart, I always like to walk through these little signs. If you're new to this 3-part series, we are going to be exploring the Roman station churches kind of the Saturday before the week goes on. So this was a trial run today, which is no problem. It's the nature of social media to run into these hiccups because these apps are always changing. But I don't know where I'm supposed to walk. Can't go that way. Look, this is interesting. So this tower recently fell, crumbled some parts of it, which actually resulted in the death of one of the workers, unfortunately. But there's other works going on. Oh, this is for the metro. There's works going on. So let's see how we can manage to get through. But it was a very, there were already questions about the integrity of this building, which I think is why they were examining it at that moment, but they examined it in a way that was unfortunately unsafe. I have no idea where I'm supposed to walk. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy feast day of St. Valentine. If you want to go visit his skull, you can go to the part 1 of our lives today. So this is good to know that there is traffic reroutes. But so I have some exciting news. So next weekend, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to come live here every Saturday, and we're going to trace the path of the week ahead and visit all of the Roman station churches for that week ahead. I have no idea where I'm going. And which is great. I get to come on here live with you for a while. We can talk about the churches we went to the week before. We can talk about the churches we're going to. But if you want to explore anew or again, or wait, that's the same word. If you have never explored my old videos on the Roman station churches, Mamma mia, I think we have a big reroute. Yeah. Let's take a shortcut because I'm not patient enough for that. We have, what do I want to say? We have videos in the caption of this video that are linked to all of the particular tours of those churches. So as we're going through, obviously I can't go into all these churches, usually because I don't have great cell service, so I lose you, and that's not a nice experience for either one of us. So here we're on Via Cavour. It's funny, I thought I was going to have a companion today walking through the city with me. I feel like, but she's exploring the city and running errands, so maybe I'll run into her as we get close to St. Peter's. But here we are on some side streets. Saturday is a fun day to come in the city to sort of be surrounded by crowds. If you don't know, I live on the seaside, so I bring a train into the city. Here we are. I'll point things out. You can always ask questions too. But in general, I kind of want to just connect the dots for the Roman station churches as we're walking through the city. Really hoping I don't have to walk all the way up to the Angelicum in order to get to St. Peter's Basilica. So I'm not gonna talk about everything we're seeing in the city, But if you have questions, I'll answer them. Try to the best of my ability. This is actually the tightest crowd I've been in all day because of this reroute of traffic, of foot traffic. It's, hopefully the passage is open to walk across the forum. Maybe we'll see. But we are looking over at the Campidoglio across the forum, which is like the town center of Rome. I know I'm not one of those social media influencers, but I could really go for a gelato right now or a coffee. But we're on a mission. We started, I had all this great plan. I wanted to be kind of a round circle with this today's social media, starting in the gardens with St. Peter's in the background and then ending at the end of the live in front of St. Peter's Basilica. I think I've only been in this church once. But here we're just on the other side of this tower that I told you about that was crumbling. These streets are never this busy. It's only because of the reroute from Via dei Fiori Imperiali. So creates unique experiences. Up this route is towards the Angelicum University, which may be the way I have to go. But these crowds are much diminished in number compared to what they were for the Jubilee. I mean, I mentioned in the first video, it's just incredible to think Rome had had over 50 million tourists. Let's see. Oh, can I go this way? Wonderful. Strada Interrotta. I don't know if that means I won't be able to go all the way across, or... Good question. Am I still studying at the Angelicum? I am still a student at the Angelicum. Yes. But it would be, if I were a social media influencer by way of talking about Italian bureaucracy, boy, would I have stories to tell you. I'm in the process now of converting my permesso di soggiorno, it's called, my permit of sojourn or stay in Italy. I'm converting it from being a student to work. So I meet those requirements. I was trying to avoid hills so you don't have to hear me huff and puff as we go up these hills. But so I'm still registered as a student, but my priority really is work. This was not on the plan today, but can't complain. Here's a church right here on the left, right at the foot of the entrance to the Angelicum, which has adoration during the week at least. I like when people wave to the live stream. By the way, how's like the picture quality? Do you like this format? I always like to know where you're watching from. So we're gonna come back here next week. Not for this church. This is San Domenico Nuovo. San Sisto Nuovo. That's the Angelicum right there. Up that way. And then this is Via Panisperna. Via Panisperna takes us to San Lorenzo and Panisperna, as well as towards Santa Maria Maggiore, St. Mary Major, which is where Pope Francis is buried, where the Salus Populi Romani is. There's the Quirinale. I can't zoom, I don't think so, while I'm doing the live. No, can't zoom. So Quirinale is where it used to be the Papal Palace, when the Pope had more juridical control of these lands of central Italy. But this is my old stomping ground, walking up this hill every day to get to my university at Angelicum. There used to be a great place right down there that we students would go to, and they used to have a great burger and wonderful French fries. But nope, just a typical Italian fight about traffic. So, as you can tell, this is not safe. The traffic is heavy foot traffic because of that redirect. So we are going to go down past these two churches. What was I saying? So we're going to come back this way next week because for the first week of Lent. So I have this titled First Week of Lent as a sort of misnomer because Ash Wednesday prepares us for the first week of Lent, the first Sunday of Lent and the following week, which is fine. We'll figure out how to name all that once we get into the first week proper of Lent. But we come back that way for San Lorenzo and Panisperna. San Lorenzo was martyred just over there, where the story goes he was being grilled alive and said, "Turn me over, I'm done on this side." Beautiful, beautiful fresco in there. But just as you know, I feel free to ask questions in the comments as we're going around live, or if you're watching after the live streams, you can still ask questions in the comments and I'll try to come back and get those answered for you. This is a collect church for a Friday church before we go to Santi Apostoli, which is just that way. Santi Apostoli. So we used to meet here in this collect church, this colletta. Yeah, let's look at that beautiful skies. They're sort of setting up this Trajan Forum right here in a more historic manner, organizing we'll look back at it once we get to this open clearing. Or sort of putting it together to give us an image of what it would have looked like historically a bit better. Here we have Trajan's column. St. Peter stands atop. Oh, from this angle we don't see the Colosseum, but here we have the Trajan Forum. So this was basically a marketplace, and you can see it's interesting. Let me tell you more about that structure. It's from these Roman buildings that we have the basilica style. Let me just check that my zippers are shut. As I get older, I'm more anxious about losing my documents, having my wallet stolen, and things like that. Especially now that I live by the seaside and I'm not used to all these crowds as much as I used to be when I was. Hello from Scotland. Great to see you live. And I always, just missed. Let's see if I can read that comment while you enjoy this beautiful. So, that is true. Tomorrow, there is the 40 hours at St. Peter's Basilica. Sorry, 40 hours at Trinità dei Pellegrini. I won't be present because I have to work for the papal stuff. Unfortunately, I won't be present, but my confreres and consorelle will be. But the Brompton Oratory Choir is coming to sing. I will, however, witness their singing the following weekend in a special town that I'm visiting to visit some relics of a saint. Take you to that town with me, since it sort of disrupts our time together. So we're gonna cross and we're gonna go through. We're not gonna walk on the main street of Vittorio Emanuele. We're going to walk on the side street. So this is Santi Apostoli coming up. We'll cross the street and we're heading to Sant'Agostino, which is where Saint Monica is buried. It's quite a beautiful actual station liturgy. Let me see, where can I cross safely? Let's cross up here. Sant'Agostino, which actually isn't the original station. It was Saint Trifone was the original station, which was a church right sort of at a right angle perpendicular to Sant'Agostino as it stands now. But we will tell you more as we get there. These are the works going on in Piazza Venezia for the metro station C, which will be stories deep into the ground, and will be basically a museum. So there's these ideas of restoration and as we're doing all these archival things in the city, the question is, what do you do when you stumble upon Roman ruins, which you're undoubtedly will stumble upon when you're digging, especially in such the historic part of the city. What do you do with it? So in this case, they've decided that it will become basically a museum of the items that they found. So this is Via del Corso. If ever you've seen Christmas videos from Rome, this street is all lit up with Christmas lights, and we're blocking, these items are blocking, silos are blocking the Piazza Venezia, the wedding cake. Not a huge fan of. Another aspect of this street that was quite popular, it's kind of spotty service right now, cell service, is during the lockdown in Italy in 2020, which shockingly was almost 5 years ago now. I don't remember what day, but at one point Pope Francis came to a church right down here, which is a Roman station church. There's actually two, one there and then one on the other side, station churches. One holds a miraculous crucifix, and that's why it's not safe, people crossing this street. I was not going to cross the street, don't worry. But there's a miraculous crucifix that has been carried in procession and prayed before to ask for the end of plagues, which were brought and determined to bring an end to the plague after these intercessions before the cross. He went to pray there. Then that cross was also brought to St. Peter's Square when he had a special Urbi et Orbi on the Feast of the Annunciation on March 25th. This is a long red light. I'm trying to think of which way I should go. We want to cross through Piazza Navona, don't we? So let's go. I'll cross through Sant'Ignazio. I could have actually gone up there and crossed myself with that crosswalk that you see, but here we are. Cross this way. Also, up on this church on the left, it's Santa Maria in Via Lata. This Via del Corso used to be called Via Lata, which this is the street that basically Emperor Constantine marched down to conquer after conquering Rome. So it was the Triumphal March, which is commemorated with the Arch of Constantine, which we saw, not in this live stream, but in part 2. The arch which stands... I just got a message from my traveling companion. She is inside Sant'Agostino. We're probably about 10 minutes away from there. But the Arch of Constantine commemorates the triumph of Emperor Constantine over Maxentius. And we know that Emperor Constantine is the eventual emperor who legalized Christianity with the Edict of Milan at the beginning of the 4th century. And following that, we have the growth of this devotion of the Roman station churches, of growing and expanding the devotion that early Roman Christians had to the early Christian martyrs. That's really what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And I don't know if I explain it well enough, or this is also a place with quite regular adoration. In fact, the Blessed Sacrament is exposed. There, and they have adoration as regular aspect of their daily life. So that's a place for adoration in the city. Where, what else can I say? Let's go this way. Let's avoid these crowds. This also wasn't, I don't remember the name, this wasn't the original station, Santa Maria in Via Lata. There was another title for this station of a church that no longer exists, which stood basically right here where we're walking. Here, we're passing the Roman College. It used to be a major Jesuit presence in Rome. This complex, Sant'Ignazio, where St. Ignatius is not buried. It's named after him. St. Ignatius is buried in the Gesù. But there's the Church of Sant'Ignazio, which everyone knows about thanks to social media for its frescoed ceiling. But it sits over on the other side of this building. It's famous for not having a dome. Instead, it has a fake dome, a specchio. That's what it's called when you have this painted fake dome. And St. Aloysius Gonzaga's rooms are here. He lived here. And he's buried in the right transept altar. Okay, where are we going? We're going to pass. We're passing there. And we're going to pass Santa Maria sopra Minerva, which I will point out as we go. We'll pass the Pantheon, Piazza Navona, and then Sant'Agostino. $5:45. Oof. I lost a bit of time because of my my chit-chattering. Also that reroute, as well as my failures with managing the new changes on YouTube. The hardest thing on social media is to get it to do what you want it to do. Here we are, we have church bells ringing. And in this church. We're seeing the side of the church is Santa Maria sopra Minerva. In front of the basilica, you find, or the front of the church, you see an obelisk. Also buried inside the church is St. Catherine of Siena, who is the patroness of the Roman province of the Dominicans. This is a Dominican church. Our second Dominican church that we've seen today. Santa Sabina is housed by the Dominicans. St. Dominic, St. Thomas Aquinas, Pius V lived in Santa Sabina. St. Catherine is buried here. She lived just kind of street from here for a bit. The rooms of St. Catherine of Siena, which have been transferred and now exist in the sacristy here. Here we have a statue of the elephant, which was sculpted by Bernini, and above it you have a small little obelisk. There are 12 or 13 that exist today, and they mark pilgrim churches. They were basically the Google Maps of the 1500s. So we're just walking by because we need to get to Sant'Agostino. I don't know if it will close, which doesn't matter if you want to explore the inside of the churches you see here. Or I've never done a video of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. It's sopra Minerva. The round building is the Pantheon. This is the backside of the Pantheon. They've just opened a way to visit underneath the Pantheon. I don't know the ticketing, but the Pantheon is the oldest building you will see in Rome, standing. It's been built twice, but it was built in this particular building of it was built in the. So it's the oldest standing building in Rome. What did I also want to say about that? I mentioned St. Catherine of Siena. We're going to talk about her again once we get closer to St. Peter's Basilica. Basically just people watching as we walk through the city. There's the porch of the Pantheon. Don't worry, we have this to explore, so can't show you everything in one video, but if you want more of the churches, which are properly stationed churches, go into the caption of this video and you'll find the links there. Also share this video. When I have a new endeavor like this, it takes a bit more to pick up steam. This is I don't know if my dad's watching, but this is the Church of Sant'Eustachio, which, if you're watching, or if you know, I have a friend, Agnese, who is the original one who gave me this devotion, inspired this devotion, because she is a strong devotee of the Roman station churches. One of her uncles is buried here, who was the rector of this church. His cause for canonization is begun. He's a venerable, and he's buried there. He was the parish priest of Sant'Eustachio. Here is the famous Cafe Sant'Eustachio, known for their sugar foamed coffee. They have it. It's interesting. They have also, it's beautiful branding, yellow, beautiful branding, but they have really good coffee pods, actually. So if you have an espresso machine or something like that, the coffee pods are kind of a great thing to take with you. Up there we have San Luigi dei Francesi. And now we're just walking across Via Risorgimento, and we'll go to Piazza Navona. Beautiful time of night. You don't really pick up the color of dusk on the screen, but what do I want to say? As I was saying, you can check out the videos that I have of the Roman station churches. The links are in the caption. If you want me to explore churches that are not Roman station churches, just comment. Jacob, you never taken us to Santa Maria sopra Minerva. You should do a video. I do have a beautiful video from within Santa Maria sopra Minerva of some friends of mine singing. I'll find that in the caption here as well. Something really cool. People kind of forget about these, but these fountains here were were a gift to Rome by Mussolini, and they represent the neighborhoods. So you have the deer, which is the deer of Saint Eustachio, which stands above the church as well. He was a soldier who was hunting and converted. As he was about to shoot the stag, a cross appeared between the horns of the deer and he converted. The most common one is the one by St. Peter's Basilica, sort of set off to the side with papal tiaras. That's the one that everyone sort of knows. Here we have Sant'Andrea della Valle. Let's see what time it is. We can walk through this church. It says Pole in English. It's a beautiful statue of Our Lady of Sorrows right here. Also of our Lord in his passion. And now we are in Piazza Navona. That's my favorite shortcut to do. Hello, St. Agnes. So we know there's 3 fountains in Piazza Navona, another obelisk above the central fountain. We're not far from Sant'Agostino. It's just at the top of... So the whole goal of these videos is to sort of get you to understand what the path is between all of these churches. Now, we know, if you're an avid follower of Crux Stationalis, you know that there are additional churches called collect churches, which are usually closer to the station church than the prior day's station. Let's get closer to the fountain. It's beautiful and clean. Well, there we go. My gimbal's acting up on me, but what do I want to say? So my understanding is in the early centuries of the church, after the legalization of Christianity, the Pope would partake in the stations. And basically, it was his way of gathering, going to the different points of Rome, which were the most historic points of charity in the diaconie that existed with different cardinal deacons, and they were the centers of charity for the church. So the Pope would go to these places. There was charity and governance and things like that, and it was basically how he got to stay informed with the cardinals who were on the ground doing the dirty work of governing the Church of Rome. And it's the beginning of the sort of consistory of cardinals surrounding the Pope. So beyond the spiritual aspect of going to tomb of each of the martyrs, let's look back at Piazza Navona. Always take opportunity to soak it in. beyond just going to the tombs of these martyrs, it was a way of encountering the church in a practical manner as well. So when you hear cardinal deacons and cardinal priests and things like that, that comes from these ancient structures of governance in the city, which still exists, but as the church obviously has less worries when it comes to the practical matters of existing in the world. That's the safest way to cross. Let's go. This is another station church on the other side. This is a Pontifical University, Santa Croce. And the station church of St. Apollinarius, which is run by the Opus Dei. So just through this tunnel, or this gallery here, we have the Church of Sant'Agostino. Beautiful facade. We've passed the Colosseum. We started at the Colosseum in this live. And the facade is built from stones from the Colosseum. As you know, most of the Colosseum has crumbled and they had to do something with the travertine stone. And so this is one of the things they did. Facade, the Church of Sant'Agostino. We'll go in. Don't know the timing of things here in the evening, if there's mass or something. St. Monica is buried here. And there's the Caravaggio of Our Lady of the Pilgrims. This is a statue of Our Lady of the Childbirth that women come to pray, especially for safe deliveries. So if you know people who are pregnant and want to pray for them, this is a place to come. And then especially difficult pregnancies, these are votives for after successful pregnancies. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. So there are works going on. There's been works going on for years here, but I'm sure it will be glorious at the end of it. And I'm sure Pope Leo will visit here when all the works are done, because this is the Augustinian church in Rome. They wanted a church that was close to St. Peter's Basilica. So they requested this church. This was centuries ago. They have another church at the entrance, the north entrance of Rome in Piazza del Popolo. And then they requested this to be closer to the General Curia of Rome. Here's the Caravaggio. It was kind of a scandal when he painted it because of the bare feet of the pilgrim. It's been recently restored as well. And then St. Monica is buried there. There's also a crucifix here that St. Philip Neri used to come and pray before when he was young and in Rome. Beautiful relics are brought out here as well on the station church. They always fool us because they're praying the rosary and mass will begin, so I don't want to disturb them. But they I don't see my friend, so. What did I want to say? They always fool us. They tell us 1 hour, like they tell us 5:30 for the liturgy, but really that means they're going to pray the rosary, then they're going to pray vespers, then we're going to have the procession, then we're going to have mass. So I see my friend, so I'll see if she wants to accompany me to St. Peter's Basilica. And then hopefully I'll be on the 7 p.m. train home. So Stephanie, yes, I'm happy to say that prayer as well. My sister is pregnant, and so is my sister-in-law. You hear the church bells. So I have 2 more niece-nephews on the way. 15 will be the total, which is beautiful. And now we're walking to St. Peter's Basilica. Let me think the best way to walk. We'll go down. Yeah. I'll show you my favorite gelateria. So as I was saying, this is the Augustinian church. So at some point, Pope Leo will definitely come here because it's a very, obviously as an Augustinian, he will maintain that connection as he already has in many ways by having lunch at the Augustinian University that sits right next to St. Peter's Basilica. Yes, always willing to pray for people in Rome. This is what I love about YouTube as well, and these lives and Lent, is I come onto YouTube in a more social way, whereas usually I'm on another platform. But I'm always happy to encounter the active followers here on YouTube. So as I was saying, this is Santa Apollinare, that facade right there. We're going to walk across the Bridge of the Angels. So I'm going to go on Via dei Coronari. Again, there's Piazza Navona. It's, what time is it? In Rome, it's 6 p.m. So the bells we just heard were, oh no, there's no crosswalk right here. We'll do the safe thing. Yeah, we'll do the safe thing. What did I want to say? Oh, so the bridge. We're going to cross the Bridge of the Angels. So in my Quinquagesima video, linked down below, I have a beautiful description of that bridge. I give you the detail of all the statues. And up here is the Cassazione building, which I forget what they call it in Italian, but they have a nickname for it. Basically, the architect was so unhappy from the ridicule he received building the building because it's considered so ugly and so heavy of a building that architecturally it just started sinking into the soil. So he was ridiculed, and he decided that he couldn't handle that ridicule anymore. I can't tell all the details on a live stream for the sake of censorship on YouTube, but it's still sort of a building of ridicule for this architect. Yet, money is going into it to upkeep it. I mean, now people see it and they think it's beautiful, but it just lacks, I'm sure there's people smarter than I am who would know that it lacks sort of some architectural integrity. Whenever I'm thinking, oh gosh, what's the best way to get to this place or that place? Usually it's you take it and it cuts across this way or that way. on the side streets that intersect with it to get to St. Peter's or to get to Piazza Navona in a quick manner. Or like here, if I wanted to go cut down, not to Piazza Navona, but cut to Santa Maria della Pace or Santa Maria dell'Anima, I would do that. Smell pizza and I'm actually starving. But it's 6 p.m. So we are going to go to nearly 40 churches during this season of Lent. I'm going to go live on Instagram every day. Yeah, it's beautiful. I haven't been in the city like this in a long time, so I'm happy to do this as well. But every day, or is every day that I'm able to get to the liturgy in the evening. This is a great restaurant, this Agape. And they have a pizzeria that they open next to it as well. We're nearby San Salvatore in Lauro, which is a very active Roman parish, one of the few sort of very active parishes, and there's a lot of relics there. There's relics of St. Padre Pio, and recently there was a relic of the precious blood from Mantua, which comes from the lance of St. Longinus, which we will visit in St. Peter's Basilica in about a week and a half, in 2 weeks' time, actually, exactly. On the 28th of February, we'll go there. I won't be live during the liturgy, but we'll be present to share you images after the fact. And anyways, this parish priest brought this relic from Mantua here to the parish, and there was a procession and things like that. But it's the blood of our Lord, which comes from the spear, the lance, which pierced the side of Christ. There's another relic of that blood in a town in Germany, in southern Germany, called Weingarten. I have some holy oil blessed from that relic. But my favorite, did we pass? No. My favorite gelateria is just right here. Oh wait, no it's not. I don't know where. Yeah, no, this is it. Gelateria del Teatro. They have some of the most unique flavors. I mean, look at that, it's just beautiful. I mean, they're doing this just to entice you to come in, but it's also where sometimes they have basilico, basil ice cream, basil gelato. But the guy is really nice. He doesn't say a word, but he's very direct and calming and nice. This is San Salvatore in Lauro. So there's always relics of St. Padre Pio there. And then occasionally, and St. Jude. It's also the center of devotion to Our Lady of Loreto. Let me see. So it's just a typical parish. It's more active than a lot of other parishes in Rome. You know, you have the active aspect of Trinitate Pellegrini, where my parish is. Even if I'm always working on Sundays, I'm not able to get there due to following the Pope's schedule. You have Chiesa Nuova, a very young crowd goes there, especially for the sermons on a Sunday evening. And then you have San Salvatore in Lauro and San Lorenzo in Damaso, which is another station church. Chiesa Nuova is where St. Philip Neri is buried. This is also the street where there's very expensive antiques, like out of this prices. Another idea of videos that I wanted to do was just walking through the city with no commentary and doing hours of it, sort of Roman sounds and just walking through the city. But I think this is second, or even better, because you get my wonderful Crux Stationalis commentary, where we hear the sounds, see what's going on a Saturday in Rome. It's weird. It's living in Rome after 10 years. Like you get habituated to your sort of ways you do things, and so you don't explore things in the same way, which is fine. But I don't know. Sometimes it's good for me to get to. Sometimes it's good for me to go to other Italian cities that I'm not so familiar with, because then I get the sort of sense that the pilgrims have when they come to Rome, or, things like that. Not that I'm saying there's no contempt for Rome, but sometimes you wish you'll turn a corner and discover something new, which of course there's so much to discover in Rome, but oh no, there's more construction going on. Anyways, so I've just realized I've had my arm holding the gimbal for the last 3 hours, and my shoulder is starting to hurt. But here we are at Castel San Angelo. So we're right there. You can see parts of the bridge. We'll see more as we walk across. Here is another church of Santicelso e Giuliano, which is the usual location for the Institute of Christ the King, as well as there's the new mass here as well on a Sunday or Saturday evening. But a quite hefty schedule from the Institute as well. But there's works going on. We don't know when they'll be finished. So the mass location for the Institute is in two other churches. But the works really make for a unpleasant journey through the streets. Okay, let's get to the opening, see if my friend is with me still. There we go. Or as they say, let's go. Ponte degli Angeli. So this was the original bridge for pilgrims to cross from the center. We're on the city side center of Rome. So we're on this, where all the life used to be. St. Peter was buried outside the city, near the Circus of Nero, because that's where he was martyred, and then he was buried into the side of Vatican Hill. Because as we get to St. Peter's, or if you know the piazza, you know that the piazza is a bit on a slant because it's on a hill. And then if you go behind St. Peter's, you even see more that Vatican is a Vatican Hill. And so this bridge was the only bridge that pilgrims had to cross until the 1600s, when Ponte Sisto was built for pilgrims to cross, because there was a major accident here where the bridge collapsed due to the high numbers and maybe just the lack of renovation of the bridge. And so this bridge had to be refortified, and Ponte Sisto was built to give two options for people to cross the river from the historic center of Rome to get to the most important aspect of Rome, the tomb of St. Peter. And we have angels adorning. You have Peter and Paul sort of gatekeeping the bridge. There used to be a tax also to cross the bridge as well. Here we have St. Peter's Basilica. And then you have angels on the bridge holding instruments of the Passion. So this light, this blue light behind is just absolutely beautiful. The angels were not the original just decoration of the bridge. There used to be patriarchs and other saints, Moses, Noah, but they were replaced by these angels. And they're all in the style of Bernini, but they're not all completed by Bernini. Only 2 of them are. And the originals of those 2 angels are, I much like it with the angels as well. But we should have devotion to the patriarchs as well. Just commenting on someone's comment in the comment section. But it's beautiful to meditate and to sort of set the devotion of Rome on the instruments of the Passion and the love of the sacrifice of Christ. But the only 2 statues which were actually carved by Bernini are these 2. These 2, of course, are copies. The originals are in a church called Sant'Andrea delle Frate, where St. Maximilian Kolbe said Mass in Rome. But these 2 are Bernini's. And then the others are just in the school of Bernini. So here, this one has the signum, the INRI, that stands above the cross. And this is the cross. This angel's holding the cross. And then there's scripture underneath, which details and connects to those images. So the pilgrims would be greeted by Peter and Paul, cross meditating on the instruments of our salvation, and be greeted by St. Peter's Basilica. Of course, Castel San Angelo, which stands to my right, was originally a mausoleum for Emperor Hadrian, but was then converted into a fortress and became the place of protection for the Holy Father. Most of you know that there's a wall that connects St. Peter's Basilica to Castel San Angelo, which is a passageway for protection for the Holy Father if ever he needed. I'll pause for the music fans. That's usually the place where you can find the best musical artists performing on the street. I told you, here is the statue of St. Catherine, which I have a very interesting real idea that I'll do for Instagram, but I had to find out how other people filmed it. But here she is. She's the one who made the Pope come back to Rome, and we thank her for that, because that's why we have what we have here. So this is Via della Conciliazione, which is a gift from Mussolini as well, in the sort of restructuring of Rome after the Lateran Treaty. We just celebrated this week, we just had the anniversary of the signing of the Lateran Treaty. I think it's February 11th. And that was the accord between the Vatican and the Italian state, between the church and the Italian state, which created the Vatican city-state, and then gave Rome its right, gave the church her rights and things like that, territorially and everything. Anyway, so this is not so much It was an original plan for the neighborhood. However, it was not the plan when St. Peter's was built. Instead, you would be walking down these streets as you're just walking through a typical neighborhood, and you were meant to stumble upon St. Peter's Basilica. Now we know this area with this sort of iconic straight passageway down to St. Peter's, but it's not what Michelangelo intended. It's not what the original structure of St. Peter's was meant to be. You were meant to just stumble into the open arms of St. Peter's Square. Here is the entrance to my office, by the way. It's where I come when I'm coming into the city for work. That's where we have EWTN offices. From the inside of the office, you only capture, well, from these front windows you can see the basilica, but from any of the terrace you only see a little bit of the top of the dome. But I do love walking past St. Peter's every day to get to work. And here we have Santa Maria Traspontina, which I need to do. It's one of the churches. It's not a station church, but it's a church that I need to do a video for you because beautiful, beautiful artwork inside. Once we get to St. Peter's Square, I'll end the live stream. But St. Peter's is the station church for Quinquagesima. Tomorrow is Quinquagesima Sunday. So we're in this period before Lent, which is no longer in the new calendar, but it's a period of 3 Sundays leading up to Ash Wednesday, which prepares us already for the fasting and the not only physical fasting, but also sort of a spiritual fasting where the Alleluia is suppressed in the liturgy. The color is already violet. However, the deacon and subdeacon are wearing tunicals still. Whereas in the traditional liturgy during Lent, this deacon and subdeacon wear folded chasubles, reminiscent of the mourning going on, the penance, the heaviness of penance. It's only when they're proclaiming the scripture in the epistle and in the gospel that they take off those vestments and put on, well, the deacon puts on a broad stole, but they take off those vestments of mourning to signify the joy of hearing the gospel and the joy of hearing the scriptures. Anyways, we're walking down the street. We're still waiting for these structures to go away. That was the entrance for pilgrims for the Jubilee. It was really interesting being in my office, especially on the warmer days. The windows would be open and you could hear all year long. It was beautiful in different languages. The pilgrims singing. Whenever it was Latin, I would run down and try to get videos of the people. But you'd hear the pilgrims singing as they're coming to St. Peter's, coming to pass the Holy Door. So the Holy Door is closed. I'm sure you've been told this many times throughout the Jubilee year. The Jubilee opens ordinarily every 25 years. There's a Jubilee year. It used to be even longer. And the Jubilee was called because of a devotion that exists in St. Peter's Basilica of the Veil of Veronica, which we will also see during the station churches. We see it on Passion Sunday, 2 Sundays before Easter, where there's an icon that's said to be the Veil of Veronica, and it used to be processed from St. Peter's to Santo Spirito, which just is on the other side of these buildings, which is a hospital, historically as well. And the Pope would process basically 2 or 3 Sundays. It was like the 2nd or 3rd Sunday of January. So after the Feast of Epiphany, they would take this icon and they'd process it in the streets here and take it to the hospital. And Boniface VIII, in performing those rituals, looked upon the veil and was moved with such devotion, and also was made aware of a man who was 108 years old, who, when he was a child, was told about this devotion, this of carrying the veil. Sorry, I'm getting tired after walking through the streets. And he was so old that he couldn't walk, obviously, but his children were carrying him through the streets, these very streets. And his only desire was to look upon that veil, to see Christ's face. And so it was that veil which people would come to Rome to see, because it was a ritual which was carried on much more often than now. Now it's done once a year. But people, of the pilgrims who carry, the seashells going to, in Spain to the tomb of St. James. Similarly, pilgrims coming to Rome had their own symbols, Peter and Paul, but even more so, a figure of this veil of Veronica. And even the pilgrims who died here in Rome, who came to Rome and traveled here, and there's more archaeological evidence of those images of Veronica, of the veil of Veronica, than St. Peter and Paul. So people were coming to Rome for this veil. And so St. Boniface looked at this veil. He knew of this man who had in his one desire in life to come and look upon the veil as well, that his children carried him through the streets, and he cried out in devotion to the veil. And Boniface was moved by all of that to call the first Jubilee year. And at that point, the Jubilee was happening every 100 years, and then 50, and then 25. And so that's why. And then during the Jubilee, they would they would show that veil every Friday. And so it became a central aspect of the Jubilee as well, beyond just entering the holy doors. So those are things we've lost, but who knows? Maybe if people know about them more, we can regain them. Here's the ever-contested papal apartments. We don't know, so we know those two windows is usually where we would have said goodnight to Pope Benedict. We'd come and we'd wait, and in the 9 p.m. hour, the lights would go off and we'd say goodnight. We don't know where Pope Leo will live. We know it will be in that palace, but we don't know. We've recently been told maybe it won't be those rooms that he will be living in that we see with those two windows, which is fine. But there is a sort of nice sentiment to come to St. Peter's Basilica, St. Peter's Square, and say goodnight to the Pope. Justifies that night out in Rome. We'll get a little bit closer and then I'll say goodnight. So just a reminder, first share this video with your family and friends, like it, comment, let me know where you're watching from, and let me know what you enjoyed. Let me know if it's too long, if I'm too long-winded or whatever. And we'll be back next Saturday in a surprise town with surprise stories there. And then the following weeks after that, we'll be in Rome exploring all of the Roman station churches. And then if you're on Instagram, you can watch me live every evening from Instagram as I walk to the churches, each individual churches. So there we'll be able to chat more and give you more detailed. But for those of you who are not on Instagram, or those of you who would rather just to explore the videos yourselves, you can go into the caption of this video and click on those individual links, and that will show you those days. Also, always follow me along at romanstationchurch.com. And that's where all your info will be. You can sign up with your email there, and that way you'll stay up to date with my blogging and all of the posts, so you don't miss posts. And that will keep you sort of on a regular schedule for Lent. I'll have the daily videos scheduled there. But nonetheless, they're down there in the caption. And as the bells ring at St. Peter's Basilica, I will say goodnight and God bless you as we start Lent this year. Stephanie, so the time for next week is not sure, because I have a press conference I have to be at that I'm not sure what the timing. So it might even be earlier in the day here in Italy. So, or maybe after my after the press conference, I can go live for a little bit. It'll be shorter next week because I won't have so much to walk to show you. And so I don't know yet, but if you just keep your eye here on YouTube or keep your eye on the blog at romanstationchurch.com, that's where all the information can be. And then, anyways, you have the 2 other parts of this live stream to watch if you missed them. And I will see you in the next live. God bless you. Good night.